Hello and welcome to this video where we're going to be taking a look at some texture optimization techniques. Now the purpose for this video is I recently got contacted over one of the earlier videos and it was dealing with the offset materials, and I had gone ahead and in the video I briefly described how I had set up a texture called MES, which is basically just a prefix I use for mask, emissive and specular. However, that prefix can change depending on the textures. So what was that texture? If I just go over to Photoshop here, I have an example. In this particular case, this one is called MEA, I believe. So MSA, and what this basically stands for is the mask, specular, and in this particular case a basic ambient occlusion. Now what this does, or the way that this works, is that you can see that under the normal layers palette it just appears as if one layer. However, what we really have is under the channels we have all three of those textures packed in. Now the reason we do this is because this is essentially going to save memory space when this is run at runtime. So there's no need for us to export three different textures. There's no need for us to export a mask, a specular and ambient occlusion. Instead what we can do is we can pack 3 or even 4 if we decide to use the alpha channel into one texture and then export that as just one texture. And then what happens is when we are inside Unreal, if I just open up just this example material here that I've just rebuilt for the purpose of this, when you can see we've got the same material here where we can move around and view what's going on inside the interior. So this particular example is not as good as the last one. This was just something I quickly set up. But if we look at the actual texture, so you see it here, you can see that we have these lines that are coming off from the red channel, and I also have them coming off from the blue. Now I can also plug in the specular into the specular color over here. Okay, so you can see that what we're actually doing is using the textures from those channels inside Photoshop appropriately inside the material. So if I just go ahead and I create a new material, so I'm just going to go ahead, press M, I'm going to call this M_example. I'm going to open this up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag in the texture here and I can show you exactly what's going on here. So if I plug the red inside the base color, and let me just change this to plain, you can see that we're only getting the mask. If we plug the green in, we're only going to get the specular, and if we plug the blue in, we are only going to get that ambient occlusion. Okay, so we can close this and we're not going to be compiling this. So the next thing is looking at how we can generate such a texture, and this is really just a simple process. What we're going to do is I'm going to recreate this from scratch. So I'm going to press Ctrl N for new, and let's just give this 1024 by 1020, no, 512 I believe those textures are. So 512 by 512. Now if we go ahead and look at the texture, you can see I have the diffuse, I have that ambient occlusion, I have that specular, and I have that mask. So what we're going to do is we're going to press Ctrl A to copy the mask and press Ctrl C to copy it. Now simply go over to our new Photoshop file, and instead of pasting this inside the layers, we're going to click on channels, and then we're going to click on the red channel, so only the red channel becomes highlighted. And now if we press the Ctrl V, we actually paste that into the red channel. So we can go ahead and do this for the rest of these. So we can go ahead and add the specular. So I'm going to press Ctrl A, Ctrl C to copy. I'm going to go back to the channels inside our newly created Photoshop file. I'm going to go under green, I'm going to press Ctrl V. And finally we can go to the blue channel, go back to our original Photoshop file, and let's go ahead and copy this ambient occlusion. I'm going to press Ctrl A and Ctrl C, and we can go ahead and inside the blue channel press Ctrl V, And now you can see that we have created this entire image from scratch. So if we go to File, Save As, and in this particular case, because I have the emissive in number 1, the mask are emissive in number 1, I have the specular in number 2, and the ambient occlusion number 3. I would simply name this MSA, or I might even put ESA. So I'm just really naming them based on the order of the stack. So I go to File, Save As, and I just drop this out to the desktop. So you can see we have this MSA. I'm going to press Save, press OK. And it's going to say, it's going to give this problem. This is just because I already have this Photoshop file open. So let's close this and try that again. So you can see that we can now export this. And now back in Unreal, we can go ahead and we could right click and choose re-import, and this will just re-import that texture, and as you can see, everything stayed the same. Now what we can also do is, just for the sake of it, and I like to do this a lot, is if we're already going to be placing textures inside the RGB channels, I'll also add the alpha channel and just add something like a cloud. So I go to render clouds and just render a cloud in here, and we can use this for all sorts of stuff further on in development. But once we do that, we go File, Save As. We'd want to resave this. Now because we have the because we have an alpha channel, we want to choose 32 bits, press Save, and now if we go back into Unreal and we right click and choose re-import, everything will remain the same. However, if we go over here and we click View and we click Alpha and we turn off the red, blue and green, you can see that now we have an alpha channel. So we can turn this off, and this is just another way that we can view each one of those channels there. So just to summarize, really what this does is this allows us to pack in multiple textures into one. We only want to do this when using black and white images, as we can only pack black and white images inside the RGB channels, and it's essentially saving space. And in this particular case, it comes in handy when creating this sort of material, because we can pack in really a bunch of detail. We could pack in, for instance, the obviously we got the mask, we got the mask or the emissive, we have the specular colors, we have the ambient occlusion, and we can also pack in things like dirt on the windows and just really anything we want. So really that's just a short introduction or brief overview of that entire process. I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.